Colorism does
It's
exist.
a constant competition to see what race is better.
Everyone's scared of something that's different than them.
I think everyone's kind of racist.
That's definitely gray.
So ignorance is not knowing, but racism is a choice. It's a choice.
So how would you exactly define racism?
That's a complicated question. I think obviously everyone's going to have their own opinion of what really is racism. I mean,
Right.
I think in my opinion, it's discriminating against someone because of their color or their background for no apparent reason.
I guess racism would just be something that, like, number one, not allowing someone to do something because of their race, and number two, insulting someone or making jokes about them because of their race.
And even it's everyone's a little bit racist sometimes. Like, has anyone seen Avenue Q? Like, that's a thing. Everyone's a little bit racist.
Everyone.
Like, now and then everyone makes a joke or
Right.
giggles about something they shouldn't giggle about. And, that's a fact of life that happened.
There's places where people are like, well, it's just meant to be funny. Yeah, but the thing is that you know that you benefit from racism when
Right.
it's brought up and you could walk away from the conversation and not have to think about it again.
Exactly.
That's privilege.
Well, how would you define racism?
Racism is power and plus privilege. So
Right.
you have to be in a place of power, and the system has set you up to have privilege, and combined that is racism.
To me, when somebody says racism,
Uh-huh.
it means that there is some reason for separation, some reason for superiority.
What makes a person a racist?
Ignorance.
Ignorance? Ignorance?
Yeah.
What is ignorance?
Ignorance is not educating yourself. Being so ignorant and being happy in your ignorance. I think that makes a person a racist.
Do you agree?
I think it's not being open-minded. I think a lot of it is all about, just in everything in general in life. People who are not open-minded are often the ones that you would associate with that word. I think that's a huge
What's
part
that
of it.
word?
Racist.
Racist.
Now, how would you define ignorance? Would you define it the same thing as being, racist or?
So ignorance is not knowing,
Okay.
but racism is a choice. Like, you're making the choice to say, okay, my race is better than yours. Like, you're making the choice to be like, I'm going to disenfranchise this person because I'm coming from a place of power, and I'm going to use that power to disenfranchise someone because they're different.
It's a lot of ignorance comes from the fact that we actively are okay in our society with the erasure and the silencing of minorities. So I think that's where ignorance comes from.
To me, ignorance is someone who doesn't know and doesn't really care to know.
Okay.
So they don't care about being informed or understanding
Okay.
the problem or whatever is the case in point. And they may even comment about it
Right.
and not really understand anything about it.
Ignorance is definitely not having knowledge on a subject and trying to speak on it.
I don't like the word ignorance. I think it is not everybody has access to all the same knowledge, right? So, and ignorance puts a level of judgment there.
Right.
And everybody has different perspectives because where they located at, and excuse my sociological talk here, but where they're located at in a society.
I think that being ignorant isn't necessarily your fault. If you're raised by racist people and you don't really understand, it's not your fault. There are a lot of people who moved to NYU, which is a very liberal school, very against racism, who moved here from places that or neighborhoods with parents who seem to have been really racist, and I don't think that it's their fault. I think that they're just ignorant. They didn't really, they didn't choose to be that way. They just kind of were raised on it. And I think that being racist is more about the choice, more about choosing to judge people.
Ignorance also is based on your upbringing, I think, and the values that you have. So if someone is racist, you can't necessarily blame them if they're brought up in such a way that their parents, look at racism in the same way. Everything's taught to you.
Right.
So racism is also that way, but definitely everyone has a choice. They have an inner conscience that they need to follow. So I think that ignorance would be not listening to that conscience.
I think ignorance is a huge problem in the U.S. People are kind of taught, like, even from media, like, oh, this race is, like, they're not like me, they're different. And everyone's scared of something that's different than them, and I think that's a big part of it.
Everybody, when they see somebody, they see their race, like, immediately. I think that's just something that everybody does, and it's not something that you should judge people on. But when they start to believe things before they actually see it happen in a person, that's what makes you racist.
We've all been put in a bubble. You're either going to reinforce that bubble or you're going to break it. You know, actively seeking to learn about people and cultures outside of yourself is one way that you can help to destroy ignorance in your life.
I don't blame people for making the choices they have to make out of the information they have, but like at the end of the day, like we as a people need to be educating each other so that we can all make informed decisions about our lives.